JJ with RealitySurvival.com, and today what I'm going to talk to you about is a few ways to use a regular Bic lighter if it happens to be out of fluid and it's not working for you to start a fire the normal way, the way that it's intended. And I want to show you a few ways you can use it out in the wilderness in a survival situation. So we'll get started. If you've got your Bic lighter and it happens to be out of fuel and old or not working or whatever, as this one is, you can see here that it won't light, but it does still put out a spark. Alright, you can use that to your advantage in a survival situation to still start a fire. A pretty easy way to use this is to go ahead and strip the metal top off very carefully and take off the little safety wire so that it looks like this. And as you can see, it'll spark pretty well. Okay, so the way you want to prepare this to get it ready to go is just take a little bit of your cotton ball and Vaseline and kind of form it into a little circle there, and you want to place it up behind it where it's going to catch that spark. And then start shooting spark into it, and there you go. You set that down with the rest of your fire and you're good to go. Pretty cool. But you can also use a Bic lighter for several other things. So let me go ahead and pull this apart and I'll show you what else you can do with it. Okay, so the usable parts in this, like I said, are going to be that little fire steel, and then there are a couple of springs inside of here as well. And then you also have the body of the lighter itself, which, as I showed you the other day in the fire starters video, anything that's plastic could be used by making shavings to start a fire. So when you're pulling this thing apart here, that steel is under pressure, so you really got to be careful with it because it will go flying. So if you start by just rolling that roller wheel over to the side, keeping your finger right on top of where it's sitting, then you'll catch that steel when it tries to come out of there. And you really got to watch it because it is under a lot of pressure on that little spring. Okay, so that fire steel is not very big, obviously, and trying to use it like a regular fire steel or metal match with just your fingers is very difficult. It is possible. This spring here, it's about a 2-inch spring, and that could also be used in a number of different situations, perhaps to create a snare or fish hook or something along those lines. And then you also have another spring up underneath here. Be careful when you're pulling these things apart. And there's that spring. So again, that could be used for a small fish hook or something like that as well. So there you go. Those are most of the usable parts. The safety strap here might be able to be used to strike that steel. Okay, so this 2-inch steel spring we also said is usable, and the way that we're going to do that is we're going to stretch it out. So leaving a couple of coils on the end, I'm just going to grab that, pull it, stretch it out, and as you can see, it gets pretty long. And what you can do then is you can take it and try to run it over a stick or anything else like that, and hopefully try to straighten it out a little bit. Now, it'll take a few minutes to get it into the shape of the snare, You got to kind of work with it and toy with it, but essentially you'll be able to see later how that's formed out. And like I said, you get a good 10-inch piece of wire there that you can actually use to make a little squirrel snare. So it's pretty useful. You could also use it to make a fishing hook or something along those lines, but that spring is what makes it useful for making snares, and I'll show you how here in just a little bit. Okay, the other thing you can do with these little springs is you can fashion them into a little fish hook. And I've just taken this spring, pulled it, stretched it out, and I have fashioned it into a very small little fish hook. And then I took the Leatherman, and on the end I just repeatedly went like that, sharpened it up a little bit, and as you can see, it's pretty sharp. It's grabbing my skin. As a fish's mouth comes over it, it's definitely going to be strong enough for a small fish, and it's going to hook onto them pretty well. You wouldn't want to jerk it too hard, but it could be effective, and you could make probably 4 or 5 hooks out of that. So, alright, now let's see what the squirrel snare looks like out on a tree. You can take that spring that was underneath that fire steel, that one there that's still coiled up, about 2 inches long or so, and you can actually fashion that into a little squirrel snare. Took me a couple of minutes to get this all straightened out and everything, but what you want to do with these is you want to find a pole, okay? And what I've done is I've just taken this old pole here and I've leaned it up against this big tree. Alright, now ideally what you're looking for here is a tree that's got a couple of squirrels' nests in it or something along those lines. And squirrels, just like humans, are by nature lazy, so instead of running all the way to the ground, they'll use these little squirrel poles because it's at a nice 45-degree angle, keeps them above the brush. They tend to travel on them quite a bit. So let me show you how to affix this thing so that you can catch something to eat. Okay, so once you've got your pole in place, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to straighten that wire out, that spring out, and you want to take it and make it so that it'll just naturally relax into a position that's about the size of your finger. And then when you stretch it out, you want to stretch it out and kind of provide a little bump there so that it's under tension. Okay, so now you can see that I got about two finger size, and when the squirrel goes through there, if he just twitches it, it's going to tighten up on him, just like that. And I've caught a bunch of squirrels like this. It seems kind of crazy and simple, but it actually works. So you get it under tension, and then just a little hair bump will tighten it up around its neck. Alright, so then take it and you just bring it over here and tie it off anywhere. Doesn't have to be fancy, just a couple of loops around. And then what you want to do is position it so that it is hanging just about over the center of where you think the squirrel is going to come through there. Rest it on the bark if you need to. Okay, so that is now positioned on that log so that when a squirrel comes down there, they're going to there's some ants on it as well. They're going to very likely run right through the middle of that log. So they're going to run down from from the tree, come down this pole, and then they're going to go through right the center of that little snare. And just like I was showing you earlier, it's under tension, so when they struggle through it, it'll tighten up around their neck and they will flop around and hang there and choke themselves, and then you've got dinner. And you can actually do, you know, several of these along a pole if you have enough wire. You would ideally, you know, want to try to run, you know, 4, 5, 6 of them. If you had the wire and the resources, you could get that out of a vehicle, you know, or a junk pile, or just anywhere you could come by it, and set several of these poles around, you know, and then check them every 12 hours or so. Depending on the temperature, you might want to check them more often if it's hot. But especially in the wintertime, in areas where the squirrels don't like to get in some deep snow, this is going to work out really well for you. And it's a good way to catch dinner. It's pretty simple.